Hello and welcome to Matcha Mornings, part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network. I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith, and I'm excited to dive deep on topics around holistic health, the power of food, hormone health, how the practices of yoga can impact our health and well-being, and much more. So grab your cup of tea, settle in, and let's get started. Hello, friends, and happy 2021. I am so excited to be back here today with another episode of Matcha Mornings. We've been on a break from the podcast for the last 6 weeks, but I haven't been completely offline or on vacation for that time. I wish, but I was only offline for about 2 weeks over the holidays, and then I've been spending some time recording episodes with guests and getting everything ready for some awesome episodes in 2021. So I am super excited to be back here with you today and for you to be listening to this episode. And today on the episode, I am diving into a 30-day social media detox that I took, as well as a 30-day coffee detox and an alcohol detox. So yes, that's right. All in the same month, I took a detox from all of these various vices in my life. And I want to talk a little bit about why I decided to do that, how it went, and hopefully encourage some of you, if you're feeling the call to detox from some of those things, just how you can do it too. Before we dive into this episode, I wanted to give a special shout out to my other podcast, Mastering the Business of Yoga, or MBOM. MBOM turned 5 yesterday, February 1st, 2021. I launched the podcast 5 years ago, and I'm so proud of everything I've created over the last 5 years. If you are a yoga teacher or a yoga studio owner who wants to learn more about the business side of being a yoga entrepreneur, I would love for you to go check that out. You can check it out at wanderbarn.com or head on over to mbomyoga.com. We also have new episodes for all the other podcasts in the network. Everything else is going again. So The World Wanders is back. People Talking People is back. Creatives is back. So if you are looking for more podcasts to listen to in 2021, head on over to wanderbarn.com and check those out. I'm sure you can find something that will be up your alley. All right, so let's dive into talking about this detox that I did. So I ended up doing my coffee, social media, alcohol detox through the month of November in 2020, and it actually went a little bit into December as well, which I'll talk about as we get into it. But before we get there, I want to share a little bit about the backstory around this and why it happened and why I decided to do it and all that stuff. So in March of 2020, as we all know, the global pandemic hit. Life was pretty crazy. My husband Ryan and I were in Panama City, Panama at the time, and we aborted that to head back to Alberta, Canada, where we proceeded to spend the next 7 months. And between having a 2-week quarantine and then the next couple of months in lockdown and then slowly opening things up, but having a lot of uncertainty and fear and all that type of stuff, we got into some really bad habits around watching a lot of TV and drinking a lot of alcohol and just depending on food a lot for enjoyment and pleasure. And I don't think that this story is totally uncommon. I mean, a lot of us were dealing with a very big global event that we'd never really encountered in our lifetime before. For me, this is kind of the biggest event that I've dealt with that's personally impacted me on such a big level. And so I turned a lot to, like I said, alcohol, TV, and food. And at the beginning of October, Ryan and I decided that we were going to leave Canada and head down to Mexico. And so we flew to Mexico at the end of October, and we were both feeling like we'd put on a bit of weight. We were both feeling like we weren't super productive, and we were feeling like life was just not as rich and full as it could be. And as somebody who's a big proponent of holistic health and wellness, I just felt like my actions weren't really aligned with how I believe we should be living. And so we came together and said, let's do a 30-day dry month. Like, let's do the month of November with no alcohol. And then I was like, I think with the US election coming up, like I want to be off social media. I'm just so addicted to it right now. And so we decided that we would add social media to the list. And then my husband was like, let's add coffee to the list as well. And for me, I actually don't drink a ton of coffee. I don't drink coffee regularly during the week. It's not my like day-to-day drink or anything like that. But I had been drinking it more than I ideally like to be. And so I agreed that coffee would be great. Over the course of being home and as coffee shops had opened back up, we'd gotten into some bad habits with Starbucks Americano Mistos with heavy cream, which if you've never had that before, it's so good. But I think that it is something that should be a treat for an irregular time and not a regular habit. And because I have struggles with my hormones and that type of thing, I know that coffee isn't something I should be drinking super regularly. So I was on board to get into the no coffee thing as well. And so I think one thing to note with this type of challenge is that it's never really going to be a good time or a right time for this. There's always going to be some sort of an excuse as to why you can't do this type of thing. Like for me, I've craved social media detoxes before, and I'm kind of always like, well, I do a lot of work on social media. I have my business account, so like I can't really fully detox off social media. And that was a story that I needed to get over with that type of thing. And then with alcohol, it's like, oh, well, we just got to Mexico, we're in Puerto Vallarta, we're like hanging out with friends, like it's not a good time to not be drinking alcohol. And with coffee, I mean, it's just like I enjoy drinking coffee. So there's that. But the thing to remember with this type of thing is that there's never going to be like a perfect 30 days or a perfect time to just give this stuff up. You kind of just have to make the commitment to yourself and then just go and do it, regardless of what other people think or how it impacts other people and plans you may have with them and that type of thing. And there might be times that are legitimately better in your life for this type of thing than others. But I would say if you're craving doing something like this, you just have to go for it when it's best for you and not worry about other people in this equation. And so we arrived down to Mexico. We felt like, okay, we've got a new Airbnb. We're working in a co-working space. We're in a new city. It's kind of like a fresh start. So why don't we kind of kickstart our health and wellness into gear here? We had a gym membership and we were in a really good routine. So about a week into the time that we were there, we decided that we would start our detox, let's say, our fast. And so we basically just made a chart, a piece of paper. And we wrote days 1 to 30, so the full 30 days of November. And there was a column for each of us. And it basically said like, no coffee, no social media, no alcohol. And then every day that we fulfilled that, we got to, tick the box off. And it was actually pretty easy, if I'm being quite honest. I think that we were ready for it. We had really hit, I think, like a low with health during the midst of the pandemic. And we were both craving having this break physically and mentally from these things that weren't making us feel good. So I'm going to start with coffee. So coffee for me was the easiest one to give up because it wasn't something that I had all the time. There were just a couple of instances where I wanted a coffee, and I actually allowed myself to have 2 decaf iced coffees throughout the month. And I made conscious decisions around those to have them. And for me, it's been really good since then because I haven't really craved coffee. So basically, I had the 2 coffees throughout the 30 days. And then as we hit December, my husband's like, I'm going to go back to drinking a little bit of coffee, but not on a daily basis type thing. And I was like, I think I'm just going to kind of continue with the no coffee thing and maybe have one a weekend or something like that. And so for me, I think it was a good reset because it kind of reminded me that I don't need coffee every single day, and I don't even need coffee a couple of times a week. And for me, it's I really just enjoy the occasional Americano misto or the occasional latte. And one thing that I've found with coffee is that if I don't drink it regularly, then my body reacts a little bit better to it when I do drink it. And the other thing too is that I don't get really intense reactions to it if I can get a decaf or if I can make sure that there is a milk in it. So a latte is a lot better than an Americano or just a black coffee or something like that. It reacts in my body a lot better. And then the other thing is that I always eat before I drink coffee. And it seems like I haven't really had many issues with the few times that I have drank coffee since this detox in November. And for me, because I wasn't a super regular coffee drinker, it wasn't like the super challenging part of this detox. I didn't have to go through any like caffeine withdrawals or anything like that. I think that if you are a regular coffee drinker and coffee's not making you feel good, then it might be a little bit harder to get off of it. But I think that always thinking about how like better than as opposed to perfect. So if you're drinking, one less cup of coffee a day, that's better than what you were doing before, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I also think that we want to live in a world, or I want to live in a world, in a personal world where I'm not being super restrictive. So if I go to a cafe that has really nice coffee and I'm feeling pretty good and I'm feeling like it'll be fine for me to have a coffee and feel good after, then I go for it. I just don't allow myself more than one per day. I try to get decaf, and I definitely don't have it more than like once or twice a week. And if I'm in a space where I am doing that, then that's when I know I need to come back to the detox. I think one thing that was actually really cool about doing the coffee detox for, I guess, 30 plus days was actually seeing some data in my heart rate shift. So one of the things I had noticed while I was back home in Canada was that my heart rate was quite elevated, and I did get some tests done at the doctor. Everything was totally fine. And so I thought, oh, maybe it's just the high altitude and maybe being just a little bit out of shape and not at my healthiest and that type of thing. And when we came to Mexico, obviously we lowered the altitude, which was really good for my heart rate in general. But then quickly after that, I stopped drinking coffee, and then alcohol is a part of it too, which I'll talk about in a second. Stopped drinking coffee and noticed that my heart rate lowered, my sleep was better. And part of the reason that I know this is because I have an Oura ring. And so my Oura ring tracks things like my nightly sleep, it tracks my body temperature, it tracks my resting heart rate, it tracks my breathing rate and that type of thing. And so I was actually able to really see clearly in the data that going through this detox really helped lower my heart rate. So I think that was a really cool side effect of it, and just reminded me that caffeine can have these like little micro effects that you don't even fully realize are happening. So that pretty much sums up the coffee portion of this. If you are looking to do a coffee detox, a couple of things that I think can really help to kind of replace that morning coffee are things like green tea. Matcha is really awesome. You can also do things like reishi, things like Four Sigmatic have really cool like mushroom coffee blends, and those can be really great. Or you could do like a cacao beverage, and that can be really great for helping you replace your morning coffee. So those are some things to look into if you are wanting to do a coffee detox, but you're not sure how on earth you're going to make it happen. So the next thing I want to talk about is alcohol. And so alcohol was the second hardest one for me. Spoiler alert, social media was the hardest, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But alcohol was an interesting one. I actually wasn't sure if I was going to like commit to this one when we decided to do the detox. My husband's like, I'm doing 30 days of no alcohol. And I was like, I'm definitely doing 30 days of no social media. I'm down for coffee. That'll be simple. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll do like, I can drink once on the weekends or something like that. And then I was thinking about how, I've been drinking alcohol since I was a teenager. I started drinking alcohol irregularly and illegally when I was, 15, 16 years old and in high school. And then the legal drinking age where I'm from is 18. So I've been legally drinking alcohol since I was 18. It's always been something that's been a part of my life. And although I don't really party and I don't really go out a ton anymore, and haven't really since my mid-20s, I still will drink alcohol occasionally on the weekends with my friends. And then, as I said, during the pandemic, I was getting into some more wine drinking specifically during the week. And this was a habit I really wanted to curb. And part of the reason why I thought this would be a good challenge is because so much of my social life is dependent on drinking alcohol. And so the idea of going to a social event or going to a bar, going to meet up with friends and not getting drinks is just something that feels weird in our society. And people will always comment if you're not drinking. And it's kind of interesting how we kind of live in this space with this. And so I thought that it would be one, a really great health challenge for me just to see how I felt after 30 days of no alcohol. And then also two, a really good kind of confidence challenge, like to just say, I'm not drinking alcohol or I'm not getting a drink, and being able to build that trust in myself to say no to those types of things. And the first weekend was hard. It was weird, like going to hang out with friends and them getting beers and cocktails and me getting like a bubbly water. And thankfully I had Ryan as an accountability buddy. He was with me. So saying no is always easier when somebody else says no too. But as we progressed through the month, I just found that I was sleeping better. My heart rate was going down, like I said before. I was feeling really good when I was waking up every day. I wasn't waking up with brain fog. And I was really realizing how much alcohol has an effect on just the way I feel day to day. Hey everyone, we're just taking a quick break from the show to talk about Energy Bits. Energy Bits are spirulina tablets made of one ingredient, algae. Nothing added, nothing subtracted, just 100% plant-based algae nutrition. No sugar, no caffeine, no gluten, no soy, no additives, no GMOs, no preservatives, no binders, nothing artificial. Just 100% algae, 100% green, 100% healthy, and 100% pure. Pure and simple, the way food should be. They have high protein, high beta carotene, high iron, high chlorophyll, high antioxidants, and over 40 plus vitamins, including the B vitamins. They have electrolytes, including magnesium, potassium, and are a great source of essential fatty acids. Honestly, I could go on and on and on about how great Energy Bits are for you, and that's why I've decided to partner with them. If you want to learn more about Energy Bits or order some yourself, you can head on over to energybits.com to learn more. Use the code WANDERBARN to get 20% off your order. Once again, that's energybits.com and use the code WANDERBARN for 20% off your order. All right, back to the episode. And so as I progressed through the 30 days of this challenge, I was actually really realizing how much better I felt without alcohol. And so I was thinking about doing a longer challenge with alcohol. And I went back and forth on this. I did some meditating on it. I did some journaling. And I was listening to some podcast episodes and just trying to decide, like, do I want to drink alcohol again in the future? And I was struggling between this idea of having a firm rule around it, like I don't drink alcohol, or just kind of going a little bit more relaxed with it and making decisions confidently around whether or not I was going to drink alcohol. I think the struggle for me is that I like the taste of a lot of alcohol. I love cocktails. I love wine. And I find it really fun to go out with friends and have a couple of drinks. And honestly, I love the way that I feel after like 2 or 3 drinks. And I think especially during a stressful time in life when there is something going on in the world like the pandemic, it is really nice to feel this like relaxation in your body and in your mind to kind of just like forget about the day-to-day stresses. And for me, I know that that's not a great coping mechanism, but I was debating back and forth around whether or not I could enter the world of alcohol without it feeling like something I wanted to do all the time. So it took a little bit longer to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. Both Ryan and I ended up not drinking until the middle of December when we went on a wine tasting tour in the state of Querétaro in Mexico. They're, I guess, famous for their wine there. And I had a glass of wine after 6 full weeks of having not a single drop of alcohol. And I was a bit worried about how my body was going to react and what it was going to feel like, and if I was going to feel like hungover or drunk or what it was going to be like. And honestly, I didn't really feel anything abnormal. And so since then, I've been lightly drinking over the holidays, just a little bit of wine. We moved to a new city in Mexico and we've, gone out for a couple of drinks with friends occasionally. But over the last few weeks, I've been feeling more of the draw towards not drinking alcohol. And for me, this detox really showed me that I can go out and have fun with friends and not have alcohol, and I can actually get like the buzz of the energy of a space or a room or the people I'm with, and that although I like and enjoy the taste of cocktails and wine, and I think those are things that I'll continue to drink into the future as long as it feels good for me, I don't need it. And so I think that that was something that was really beneficial out of this. And the 6 weeks that I didn't drink for really helped break the weeknight habit. And that was something that was really important to me. I think I just felt so much better that I was able to clearly see that what I was doing wasn't good for me and that I didn't want to do it anymore. And so if you're somebody who drinks casually and you've never really had like a big break from alcohol and you're feeling like you want to try it, I would definitely encourage it. I thought it was like a really fun challenge to do. I thought that it was really good for me, both physically, but also mentally. Like the mental aspect of saying no to something that I've always said yes to, I think was really good for my confidence and to just make me feel more confident in my own decision making. And on top of that, I saw a lot of great health benefits throughout that period of time. And so just that in and of itself was really worth it. And so I don't know what the future, the big future looks like for drinking alcohol, but for now, I'm just doing my best to drink as little as possible and then to give myself the freedom if I'm feeling like I want to drink to be able to do that. And just really mentally checking into the reason that I want a drink, because I don't want to be using alcohol as a way to escape my reality. So that was a big thing for me. And if you are dealing with your own stressors or your own challenges around this, I'm just sending a lot of love your way. It's been a really, really hard year, I think, for a lot of us. And couple glasses of wine feel really good at the end of a long, stressful day. And if that's where you're sitting right now, just honor that and know that I honor that place that you're sitting in. All right, so let's dive into social media. Social media is like my biggest addiction. Where my Instagram app was on my phone, I was unconsciously like unlocking my phone with my face and immediately touching it. And I would come to like presence a couple minutes later and not even realize like how I'd gotten on Instagram or how long I'd been there for. I was doing so much scrolling unconsciously, and I would come off feeling tense and frustrated and just angry with the world because there's so much craziness going on, and there was so much craziness going on, and it just was very, very toxic. And so because I do have work accounts and because I do work on social media, there were a couple things that needed to happen for me to be able to take this detox. So a couple things that I did. One, I do have somebody who works with me. And so I passed like all the social media onto her for both my business accounts. So for both The World Wanders and MBO. And then I deleted the Facebook app off of my phone. I moved the Instagram app like to a random page in a random category. So it wasn't hard. It wasn't easy for me to find. I wanted to break that habit of like just opening my phone and going right to it. And in that place, I put an app that I needed to get into the co-working space that we were working in at the time in PV. And so there were many times where I ended up opening that app and then consciously checked in and was like, oh, what am I doing? That habit was very weird. It was very weird to break, but it was so good to actually break that habit. So moving your apps around, hiding your app, deleting your apps is really important part of this. And then what I did on my browser, because I knew I would need to do some Facebook group work and I would need to go onto some of the business pages, is I actually put in a like Google Chrome plugin called Newsfeed Eradicator. So basically when I go on to Facebook, I don't see like anything other than my notifications, and then I can just go do my work stuff. The other thing I allowed myself to do was I did allow myself to check a couple of messages that my assistant passed on to me via my browser. So not going onto the app. And then because I do have stuff on social media that does need to get checked, I allowed myself just a tiny bit of time, one time per week throughout the month, to be able to go and check if there was any DMs or anything like that. And I made a no scrolling rule for myself. And I would say I was pretty solid with it. It was hard for the first couple of days. There were a lot of unconscious me wanting to scroll. But then I just kind of settled into this place of peace and realized that I didn't need everyone else's thoughts and opinions in my life to be able to enjoy myself. And I realized that I actually don't really enjoy social media that much in a lot of situations. And it really helped me connect back to myself and to realize my purpose and what I'm doing and what my intentions were. And this was such a good way to end the year. One, I got to miss all the drama of the 2020 US election, which was great. I got to just like close 2020 on my own terms, and I didn't have to deal with all of the chaos and opinions and stuff from other people, which was so good. And I got to come back to social media feeling really refreshed with an intention around why I'm using it. So a couple things that I did when I did decide to come back, I came back pretty slowly after the 30 days. It was like December 1st hit and I was like, oh, am I just back on social media now? And I was like, no, I don't think so. Like, I don't really want to just unravel everything I just worked for in the last 30 days. So I kind of didn't really come back to social media until mid-December. So it was about 6 weeks. I slowly started going back on and checking things and answering some messages and engaging a bit more with my work stuff and that type of thing. I took a little bit more of that back over. And I moved the app once again, and then I got the Facebook app again. So that's the only way I can check notifications. I honestly don't, or check the feed. I honestly don't check it that much, but I did put a like timer on my phone so that I am only able to check social media 30 minutes per day, and then it gives me a warning. So that's been really good. And then I actually kept the newsfeed eradicator on my computer because I get way less distracted. So I feel like for me, it was not only just finding this place of peace mentally and being able to kind of unravel this really bad addiction, this really bad habit, but I was also just able to disconnect from the world and the online space and other people's lives and opinions and reconnect with myself so that I could head into 2021 feeling clear on my goals and conscious and present. And that's been so good. One other habit that was so good that I broke was scrolling in the morning. And because I wasn't going on social media, I was able to develop some really sacred time in my mornings. And this has been something that I've been working on for many years, is evolving my morning routine, making sure I'm sticking with it and all of that good stuff. And for the most part, I had been doing a okay job with it, but one of my really bad habits was that on mornings where it was hard to wake up, where I snoozed a couple of times, I would often use social media to wake me up because the light in my face and all the stimulus to my brain would get me actually awake. And that is such a horrible way to wake up, especially when the world is in turmoil. And so breaking that habit was probably one of the best things that came out of my whole social media detox. And although I have moments where I get lost scrolling, sometimes I go over the 30 minutes, sometimes I do check my phone in the morning, but for the most part, I am much more at peace and much more connected with myself and the people in my day-to-day life than I was before. And so I think that this was definitely a really, really good thing to do. And I think I'm going to be doing more of these types of challenges or detoxes in the future because I just got so many benefits out of it. Feeling good physically in my body from not drinking coffee and alcohol, feeling really confident in myself from making these decisions and sticking to them. Really good like hormone stuff going on. So my cycle was really regular over the last couple of months. I was practicing hormone yoga, which you heard from Bridget Shaw in the last episode in December 2020. She talked about hormone yoga. Since then, I've been practicing it regularly, and that's been really amazing. And so my hormones have been really good, not drinking as much alcohol, not drinking coffee. And then I just feel like my mental state has been so much better without having the alcohol plus the social media. Social media can just make you so sick in your head, and especially right now. And so if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling like you get off social media and you're not inspired, but you're just annoyed and frustrated, I would just make sure you're taking a break, even if it's like setting a limit on your phone or moving your app, or even committing to like 1 or 2 days a week where you don't go on social. Like maybe you don't check on weekends at all and you're just really present in your day-to-day life. Something like that can be really awesome. So I personally loved this challenge that I did, and I feel like it really helped me reconnect to my health and wellness and my philosophies and my values on that, and made me feel a bit more connected with the practicing what I preach. So I hope that this has been helpful to somebody out there listening. I hope you feel inspired to maybe break some of your habits or detox from some of your vices that you have. And of course, if you have any questions, make sure you reach out. It's wanderbarn@gmail.com. And as always, I am so grateful that you chose to listen to this episode. I will be back with a new episode in a couple of weeks. Bye for now. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Matcha Mornings. To find links mentioned in this episode, show notes, photos, and more, head on over to wanderbarn.com/podcast/matcha-mornings. To be the first to know about brand new episodes of Matcha Mornings, subscribe on your podcast app. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, please leave a review or send me an email at wanderbarn@gmail.com with the subject line Matcha Mornings. To follow along with me, Amanda Kingsmith, you can find me on Instagram at Amanda Kingsmith to learn more about other fun projects I'm working on. To find more great podcasts like this one on topics such as travel, the business of yoga, cryptocurrency, and more, head on over to wanderbarn.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.